Anya had always been determined to prevail, no matter the expense. Even during minor disagreements, she required the final utterance, something incisive enough to affirm her position. That particular evening, frustration superseded her better judgment. Her tone became sharper, her words more rapid, until one sentence slipped out before she could restrain herself. "You bicker too much for a chap. No wonder you're deficient in that area." The instant it left her lips, everything shifted. The atmosphere between them seemed to implode, not detonate. Rory didn't bellow, didn't retaliate with the same malice. He merely froze, his jaw clenched, his fist coiling ever so slightly, his eyes darkening with something profounder than fury. It wasn't ire that held him motionless, it was mortification, a wound rupturing that she hadn't even known existed. Without a single word, he wheeled around and departed. Anya stood in the hush, half anticipating him to burst back in as he always did, primed for another bout, but he didn't. The quiet stretched into something jagged, slicing deeper than speech ever could. That night, Rory never returned to their bedchamber. She imagined perhaps he'd creep in once she was asleep, that come the morrow they'd awaken and revert to their standard routine. But in the morning, his side of the bed was untouched. An uncomfortable tangle twisted inside her. She scoured the house until she located him in the spare room, seated rigidly at the edge of the bed, gazing into vacuity. He wasn't sulking, wasn't brooding. He was merely absent in some manner she couldn't access. From the doorway, she called his appellation. No response. She inquired why he was slumbering there, if he was still vexed, if he would come back to their chamber. His eyes scarcely flickered toward her. When he did speak, his voice was gentle, almost insubstantial, but heavier than anger. A number of days elapsed. He didn't come back. If she entered a chamber, he quit it. If she uttered a sound, he remained mute. If she extended her hand towards his, he tensed, withdrawing. This was no longer a mere squabble. It felt like the conclusion. Utterly distraught, Anya attempted every conceivable action. She prepared his preferred fare. He consumed it without savoring it. She placed hand-penned messages, small tokens of contrition. He paid them no heed. She tried witticisms brushing against him, recounting recollections of happier times. Absolutely nothing proved effective. That was when the apprehension dawned. She had always been convinced that disputes, however severe, still signified that something vital remained between them. If they were bellowing, they still held affection. But this quietude, this chasm, was distinct. It was the sound of something already shattered. She hadn't grasped that her remarks had penetrated deeper than the immediate moment. Rory carried blemishes long before her arrival. As a teenager, he had been taunted relentlessly, murmurs following him through the corridors. In secondary school, a vicious comment in the changing rooms morphed into an everlasting gossip, eroding him. He could still envision the expression on the girl he'd once cherished when she overheard. It cold, aloof, as though he had ceased to exist in her gaze. That solitary moment clung to him for years. Later, in adulthood, the wound intensified. His previous companion had deceived him. He'd discovered her with another chap. And when he insisted upon an explanation, she hadn't wept or implored. She'd merely shrugged and pronounced the words that would torment him. "You're not sufficient for me." From that day, Rory erected barriers around his suffering. Concealing it so effectively, he persuaded himself he was satisfactory. Then came Anya. With her, he felt recognized, sufficiently complete. He believed the past had finally lost its hold. Until that night, you bicker too much for a chap. No wonder you're deficient in that area. One careless pronouncement demolished it all. Suddenly, Rory was back in those reverberating corridors, back in that deceit. Only this time, the injury emanated from the one individual he trusted the utmost. For the first time since their nuptials commenced, he wondered if he could ever view her in the identical manner again. Anya clung to the prospect that time would rectify the situation. But with each passing day, Rory retreated further. One evening, she proceeded into the spare room, resolute to attempt again. He wasn't present. The noise of the shower filled the hush, but his mobile phone lay illuminated on the bed. She never pried, but her eyes caught the words on the screen. Subject initiating divorce proceedings. Her breath hitched. Divorce. She assured herself it was an error. but deep down she already apprehended the reality. When Rory emerged, she inquired gently, "Are you truly contemplating terminating our marriage over one disagreement?" For the first time in several weeks, his eyes met hers. There was no fury, no anguish, only vacuity. His voice was unwavering. "You reckon this is merely about that night?" And then she understood. It wasn't solely her cruel comment. It was everything. His past, his suffering, the detachment they had overlooked. That night had simply been the rupturing point. Desperation propelled her. She poured all her energy into striving to amend things. She offered apologies in words and deeds, small endeavors to connect with him, to remind him of what they once shared. He responded with brief, unfelt replies. His silence was its own verdict. Did he still desire to remain? She didn't require him to state it. His absence was resounding enough. She had always believed remorse could be repaired. That affection could mend missteps. But some wounds ran far too deep. One night she discovered him packing. A piece of luggage lay open, garments tidily folded inside. Terror surged. "Are you genuinely departing?" she murmured. Rory didn't glance at her straight away. He exhaled, his hands resting on the suitcase, then finally turned. His manner was composed, but conveyed the reality she dreaded. "I don't know if I can move beyond this." Those remarks struck harder than fury ever could. Tears welled in her eyes as her vanity crumbled. "I adore you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I committed a blunder. I wish I could retract it. Just tell me what to do." For the first time in weeks, something flickered in his mien. Not vacuity, but indecision, contention. He hesitated, then spoke softly. "You cannot unutter what you said, and I cannot unhear it." Her heart plummeted. But then he added, "Perhaps I am not prepared to go. Not just yet." It wasn't absolution. It wasn't a pledge, but it was some form of progress. That night, Rory remained, though the detachment persisted. The blemishes would endure, and the route to recovery would be protracted. Anya now comprehended that affection wasn't about prevailing in disputes. It was about outlasting the injuries they left in their wake. Whether theirs could survive, only time would determine.